Ladies and gentlemen, please, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Well, I'd like to welcome all of you to this 7th UFM Forum and also the Ministerial on the Southern Neighborhood. I have the pleasure to be moderating. I'm the UFM Secretary General, Nasser Kamel, and I have the pleasure and honor to moderate this press conference in the presence of the Vice President of the European Union and the Commissioner for the Southern Neighborhood and the Jordanian Foreign Minister. And of course, our host, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Spain. I will start by asking the Foreign Minister of Spain to say a few words to welcome you, but before I say that, we only have two languages available, English and Spanish, because the other meeting is still going on and our translators are busy in the other meeting. So we'll have English and Spanish only in terms of language. Excellency Minister Alvarez, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Nasser. Buenos días. Quiero agradecer la presencia y sobre todo el trabajo constante de las dos presidencias de este.
I am extremely happy for you to be here at this forum for the Union of the Mediterranean, Mr. Ministers Bوريل, Mr. Ayman Safardi, my dear friend, Minister of Jordan. I want to thank Nasser Kamel, Secretary General of the Union for the Mediterranean, for his work. Thank you also for being with us, Mr. Commissioner Olivier Bargelli from the European Commission for Spain. It's always an honor to really host a meeting of this Euro-Mediterranean process. It is also a possibility, of course, pushed by the co-presidency and all the state members. We believe this process is ours, and we are in Barcelona that is consolidating itself as the diplomatic capital of the Mediterranean and as a fundamental place for this mutual endeavor to establish in our region a big area of stability and of shared prosperity. We will finish this 7th edition of the Regional Forum of the Union for the Mediterranean. And at this occasion, it's even more fundamental and more important than in many other moments in the history of our organization. The history of all the Mediterranean participation has been more positive between the different Union for the Mediterranean countries than ever. So the Union for the Mediterranean today, the Union for the Mediterranean family is today bigger, and I salute also the presence of North Macedonia also. For Spain, this is absolutely fundamental to establish this peace and prosperity shared area, to have a much better sustainability and much better cohesion of the Euro-Mediterranean region. This is the European Year of Youth, and in the forum today, the youth have been more present than before. Their proposals, their demands have been heard. They want more employment, and the European Union has created a hub for the young people, and Spain has contributed in 500,000 euros in order to facilitate the access of young people to work, and also the Spanish strategy also is going to change through the Matar program in order to reinforce the work with the Mediterranean and their integration in the workforce in the Mediterranean. I was saying today that the consequences of the illegal and unjust invasion of Russia against aggression against Ukraine affects all the Mediterranean region. So our main endeavor is to protect our citizens from the economic and social effects of this war, and that's why the Barcelona process need to guarantee that the regional cooperation allows us to face these challenges that are very difficult in both rims of the Mediterranean. We need to take advantage of the opportunities. We talked about the food crisis, the energy crisis, and also during the Spanish presidency of the Council of the European Union, I announced that Spain will situate the Euro-Mediterranean agenda in the heart of its presidency, and that's why I propose to have a summit with our Mediterranean partners, also coinciding with the Spanish presidency, that will be a very important step also in this Euro-Mediterranean agenda that Spain is interested in. This afternoon I will be talking during the ministerial summit North-South, where I will be talking about all these different commitments in order to create this shared prosperity, peace and security area. And we'll be talking about the challenges that the aggression from Russia to Ukraine is having on our region, especially in terms of energy and food. And therefore, I only want to thank all those who have made this forum possible. It's more crucial than ever, and especially I want to thank the two co-presidency and the General Secretariat of the Union for the Mediterranean. Thank you for your hard work.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Minister Perez. We appreciate your support to the UFM. Now I have the honor to give the floor to His Excellency Ayman Al-Safadi, Co-President of the Union for the Mediterranean, and of course, Foreign Minister of the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan.
Thank you, Nasser. Do you have mic?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I think we have it now. Thank you so much, Nasser. Good afternoon to you all, and allow me to start by expressing my gratitude to my dear friend, Foreign Minister of Spain, for the warm hospitality and for the excellent organization of this conference. It's an honor to continue to co-chair the UFM with my dear friend Joseph Bوريل, and it's also an honor to have my dear friend Oliver Varhelyi with us today, and thank you for all your effective contributions preparing to this conference and in our effort to bring about the objectives of our joint endeavor. And of course, big thanks to Secretary Kamil and his team for preparing this very useful and very important meeting. The UFM was born out of the Barcelona process. And the Barcelona process at one time carried the promise of an integrated Mediterranean region, where the Mediterranean is a bridge for the exchange of joint efforts, goods, people, projects, to try and bring about the better future that all our peoples deserve. Today, we really reaffirmed the interconnectedness of our one region. Whatever happens on one shore of the Mediterranean reverberates very strongly on the other, and our future is linked. We continue to face many crises, but we also have many opportunities. And speaking of opportunities, I think today we stressed that we'll be continuing to working together towards realizing peace, stability, security, bringing about prosperity, empowerment of women, empowerment of youth, and ensuring that all our resources come together in creating the better future that we all seek. Our region continues to suffer from tremendous crises, and the prosperity that we all require will not be attained unless we're able to address the crises that continue to plague our region. On the southern side of the Mediterranean, the horizons for the attainment of just, lasting, comprehensive peace on the basis of the two-state solution continue to be absent. This absence is creating despair and frustration, which is manifested manifesting itself in the eruption of continued cycles of violence that's affecting all of us. This situation is untenable. The status quo cannot continue. We've got to bring the parties back to the table. Peace must be achieved. The only path to that peace is the two-state solution, where an independent, viable Palestinian state on 1967 lines, with occupied Jerusalem as capital, living side by side Israel in peace and security. The current situation has seen a complete absence of any genuine and meaningful effort to bring about that peace. The region, the Mediterranean, and the world beyond will suffer the consequences of failure to restore hope and to restore confidence in the peace process. Migration, refugees were also issues on top of our agenda today. We have to deal with this issue collectively because its consequences are affecting all of us. Refugees cannot be the responsibility of host countries alone. They are a global responsibility, and we can only solve this problem if we solve crises that produce them. In Syria, status quo politics cannot work anymore. We have to come together in a joint effort to bring a resolution to that crisis. And the truth is, refugees will not be crossing to Europe if they are provided with the dignified life and services that they deserve in the southern Mediterranean. So I think we're all in agreement that we need to continue to do everything we can to ensure that we come together in supporting refugees. And in this regard, I want to thank the EU for its continued leading effort in this regards. And the Brussels conference has been a manifestation of Europe's commitment to meet the legitimate needs of refugees and to provide them and host countries with the support they need. So thank you for that again. We have the climate challenge as well, which we can only work together, water sustainability, food security, energy security, all are challenges that cannot be solved unless we come together in the partnership that the Barcelona process have put forward many years ago. We have to restore the spirit of Barcelona. We have to come back together, realizing that more than ever before now that we cannot but collectively address those challenges which are common to all of us. The UFM has done a lot of work. We never needed it more than we do now, as we see more crises affecting all of us. In the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan, we remain committed to peace, to stability, to cooperation, to working together on the basis of our joint values and joint interests and our common objective of creating a region that is free from conflict, free from despair, and full of opportunity for all our peoples, particularly the youth, who represent a major percentage of our population and who need jobs, who need opportunity, who need hope. Together, not only will be working to restore hope, but we'll be working on putting together effective, practical mechanisms that will enable us to make sure that we overcome the crises that face us, but also harness the opportunities that are tremendous with the wealth of potential that our region have in terms of its youth, its education, its infrastructure, and its resources. What we need is peace, stability, and cooperation. That is the focus, and that has been at the heart of the discussions we've had today. And before I conclude, I want to join my colleagues in welcoming the Republic of North Macedonia to the UFM family. The more of us, the better. The more we work together, the more results we can achieve. So again, thank you all for this. In Jordan, you'll always have a partner that will work with you towards our common objective, again, of creating a better life and creating opportunities in conditions of peace and stability and achievement for all our peoples. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Thank you very much, Your Excellency, Minister Safadi. And now I have the pleasure and honor of giving the floor to the High Representative Vice President of the European Union, Josep Borrell. The floor is yours, sir.
Gracias. Gracias a España.
Thank you. Thank you, Spain, and thank you to the Minister of Foreign Affairs for your hospitality. Thank you for the Secretary General of the Union for the Mediterranean for your permanent commitment. Thank you for Mr. Safadi, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Jordan, for your excellent cooperation as a co-president of the Union for the Mediterranean. Thank you for Mr. Commissioner Olivier Borrelli for your work in reinforcing the partnership with the Mediterranean countries. Allow me some words about the context that this meeting is taking place within. The world is facing a difficult situation, much more difficult than a year ago. When we met here a year ago, yes, we were getting over the pandemic of COVID, and of course climate change was already there. But nowadays, today we find ourselves with a cooperation that has been aborted by the economic consequences of the aggression of Russia against Ukraine, and of a climate change that is not a menace for tomorrow, but that has consequences that are clearly present today in our lives. War against Ukraine, the Russian invasion of Ukraine has brought back war to the borders of Europe in a full violation of international law and the fundamentals of our bilateral system. It has provoked a food and energy price crisis that is affecting the whole world, especially the Euro-Mediterranean countries and the emerging countries. It also has aborted the growth that was started to be seen in developing countries, and it has set the basis of a financial crisis, inflation, less growth, more human suffering that is adding to the conflicts that exist as our southern partners know. This is the context in which we are meeting, and this context makes it more important to meet. We are neighbors, of course. We are neighbors, even if we don't want it. We are neighbors because geography makes us neighbors, and sometimes neighbors are not good friends. The most important is not only to be neighbors, that we cannot avoid being neighbors, but the important thing is really to be friends, to go beyond our problems, to work together in order to face the common challenges that we all have. And in this sense, allow me to congratulate myself with the announcement of the Spanish minister that North Macedonia is getting to form part of this community. And also the European Union has been very busy with what's happening in Ukraine, with no doubt. Is it a criticism? No, it's not a criticism. It is just a fact. How cannot we be preoccupied with what's happening in Ukraine? If you look at a map of Europe at night, you would see that all of Europe is illuminated, and there is a big black spot where there are no lights, and it's Ukraine, where a third of the population does not have access to electricity, and where Russian bombs are threatening to destroy completely the production of electricity, which means heating in the heart of the winter. We are preoccupied and occupied with what's happening in Ukraine, but this does not diminish our interest with our friends and partners in the south. And this preoccupation and occupation with southern neighbors obliges us to recognize that the gap between both rims of the Mediterranean that I was talking about last year here in Barcelona, this enormous gap between both rims of the Mediterranean that are more and more unequal, this gap has not been solved. And I want to repeat what I said yesterday. The situation is not better, it's worse. This gap is widening, not only between the north and the south, but also between the southern countries that see more and more differences and that are not resolving many of their conflicts. And this should worry us altogether, because half of the population of our southern neighbors is less than 24 years old. It's a very young population that is looking for opportunities for its personal development, and we need to push this development and also the regulated mobility of people in order to fight against irregular immigration. So the best way is to find paths of regular migration that will balance both demographies, because Europe is in a demographic winter, and Northern Africa is developing demographically. So we need to develop our energy relations. We have enormous relations in energy, and I don't need to describe this. We need to develop this energy relation with the perspective of ecological transition. We need to foster integration, regional integration. The Mediterranean regions is one of the less integrated economically regions in the world. Our neighbors have relationship problems, and our union needs to help them to resolve them. We talked about many things, about growth, about digital infrastructure. The commissioner is going to sign an agreement with our investment bank in order to promote the development of digital networks. So we talked about with the young people. They have been present in our meeting. We need to increase our commitments, and above all, we need to develop actions more rapidly. The self-criticism that many ministers showed today goes through this. We need to be much faster in our actions, because our actions are not developing at the rhythm of the problems that we have to face. And this is what I wanted to say about the result of this first meeting. There will be another one this afternoon, and I hope that this will push also to elevate the level of political interest. And as the Spanish minister said, we're going to organize a summit of the Mediterranean leaders, and we have not been seeing this for many years happening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now I have the honor of giving the floor to His Excellency Commissioner Borelli, Commissioner for the neighborhood, southern and eastern neighborhood, of course. You have the floor, sir.
Much, Secretary General. First of all, I want to thank our host, Minister Alvarez, for the usually warm hospitality that we always receive when we're here. I also want to thank our co-chair, Minister Safadi, of course, the Secretary General, who has been organizing this event for us. And we are here together from Brussels with High Representative Vice President Josep Borrell. And I think that as EU, we are trying to bring something really meaningful also in the sense that something that is touchable, seeable, visible, and usable for our partners around the Mediterranean. Because this forum, of course, is very interesting for the ministers, but what do the people get out of this? I think this is the real question. Because we see too many crises around us. We see too many crises affecting us all. We had the COVID, now we have Russia's war in Ukraine. And I think I can safely speak on everybody's behalf when I say that this is having an impact on all of us. Not only in Europe, but also around us in the Mediterranean. And it is for that reason that now we need to hold together even more than before. And this is why I think on our side we want to reinforce the message that we want to close the gap, the development gap, the social gap between Europe and its neighborhood, the southern Mediterranean. Because the COVID pandemic unfortunately had a devastating impact on the economy, on the society already. And we have been working very closely with our friends how to contribute to the recovery after the COVID crisis. And this is, I will tell you a bit later on about the different things that we are delivering already on the ground. Because the first message I think that we can also conclude from the meetings is that we both need reliable, predictable partners. This is, again, another conclusion that we can draw from Russia's war against Ukraine. And it is very important that your immediate neighborhood should be your best ally. And I think we're building this and we are reinforcing this together today. The other very important element in this, of course, is that we have to seize the emerging opportunity out of all the crises that we face, because every crisis brings an opportunity. And in that, I think the first opportunity is to build a positive agenda that is relevant for the both of us, meaning that our cooperation with members of the Union for Mediterranean as a strategic priority for the EU. I hope it's the same for our partners as well. That we want to front-load those areas where we can be delivering the fastest and where we can be the most meaningful in the fastest way. This is why we have put forward last year a new agenda for the Mediterranean, and this is why we have put forward a substantial economic and investment plan worth of altogether 30 billion euros of investments only for the Mediterranean. And the good news today is, and you will see a signature right after this press conference, is that this agenda and this plan started to work, and this agenda and this plan brings results. Just to give you a couple of figures maybe, since we have launched the plan 18 months ago, we have been able to mobilize already 3.3 billion euros in grants to the region. We have also been able to provide and generate 5.7 billion euros of investments into the economies, into the societies of our friends and neighbors and allies. And in addition to this, I do hope that we can still do this before the end of this year. We want to launch the next part of our work, which is a 4 billion euros investment package that we will put on the table together with our international financial institutions and partners as bank guarantees. And I do hope that these projects will come about very, very soon. These projects are related to the key challenges, climate change, digital, and all the projects that we have found together with our partners. Because this work that we're doing is there to provide a huge investment boost across the region, to build new economies, to build resilient economies, and to build real economies, growth and jobs. Because it is through these opportunities that we can help the youth. It is through these opportunities that we can consolidate the SMEs, which is the small fabric, but the most important part of any economy. And it is through these investments and projects that we can create new partnerships in key challenges for us, be it energy, be it digital, be it migration. So I think that we have not only ideas this time, but we have also deliverables that we are very happy to show and to share with our partners. Thank you.
Very much, Commissioner Bوريل, and on your intervention and the action of the Commission on behalf of the Southern Neighborhood. We are really running out of time, but we'll open the floor for 4 to 5 questions maximum. And then we will move after that to a signing ceremony for a very ambitious project. But let's start first with taking 5 questions or 4 from our journalists. First one.
Hello, I'm Raouia Khadr from Tunisia. I work for the radio RTCI and I represent the international delegation press group. I want to ask Mr. Nasser Kamel. A month ago, the high-level conference on women was held in Madrid. A great work on the data collection on working women was presented, but this also raises the issue of women working in the informal sector, of which there are many in the South region. How do you plan to address this issue as Union for Mediterranean? Firstly, in terms of statistics, but also in terms of the policy to be adapted to integrate them into the formal sector.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I would have loved, but time is pressing, to speak about the 4 or 5 ministerial we held this year on many subjects, starting with employment and, of course, women empowerment and research and innovation. But on the specific issue of women empowerment, this year meeting saw the review of the first monitoring mechanism we have launched in terms of women empowerment in the region. For the first time, our member states are reporting back to us on specific indicators regarding women role in the economic sphere, women role in political life, and also violence against women, and the sensitive issue of women in conflicts. Regarding women place in the economy, you are right when you say they haven't yet fully been integrated into the workforce in the formal economy, because statistics are pointing to only 20% of our women who are within that formal economy, and among those 20% are unemployed. So the meeting focused on the policy, the legislative framework, and also the private sector and the whole stakeholder effort to provide an empowering and also to provide a space where women could thrive economically speaking, especially women entrepreneurs, women starting SMEs or startups, and legislative, and also most of our grand scheme that we are deploying thanks to the support of Germany and Spain are directed towards creation of employment for young women in the region. So we're doing our bit in terms of allowing women in the region to fully be integrated in the workforce. Just to end my intervention by saying, if women in our region are fully integrated, our GDP will grow by 50% in the next 10 years. So it's no longer a matter of ethic or human rights or common sense. It's also a matter of economic common sense that we fully utilize our huge potential when it comes to women employment. Thank you very much. Second.
Hello, my name is Silvia Solanas. I'm coming from the radio station RACU. I'm going to ask in Spanish. Una pregunta para el comisario.
I have a question for Mr. Commissioner. After recognizing that Ukraine and Moldova have entered in a record time to the European Union, but Albania and also Bosnia and Herzegovina have asked also to enter the European Union. Do you have any idea about the time frame?
What, as you also paraphrased in your question, if there is one positive impact of Russia's war against Ukraine, is the fact that we have a unanimous message from all over our neighborhood, be it the Western Balkans, be it our Eastern Partnership countries, and that is, it is only enlargement and EU membership that is the long-term guarantee for peace, security, and prosperity. So in that sense, enlargement is not only back, but I would say it is the top priority now, not only for our neighbors and friends, but also to us. This is why we are redoubling our efforts on the side of the Commission to put on the table the proposals the Council can make to bring forward enlargement and bring forward enlargement even faster than before. In that, you have seen decisions made in relation to candidate statuses this year already, in 3 cases, Ukraine, Moldova, Georgia, and I'm very much hopeful, I'm looking at also the Spanish minister here, that we will have a positive decision this year, one more on Bosnia and Herzegovina. With this, I think we are giving new life to enlargement. And of course, now, as you know, enlargement is a merit-based process. Now it is going to be to our candidate countries who will accomplish the task first.
But my question is for Mr. Josep Borrell, in English. Okay.
Spanish also.
The UFM presents regionalization and cohesion as a key process. However, regional integration cannot be limited to the economic field or only by addressing climate issues. The process should benefit all Mediterranean citizens. And in this sense, how do you address the issue of international mobility and the problem of immigration, about you spoke earlier, and what role can the UFM play in this policy?
Ciertamente, como he dicho antes,
as you said before, everybody is aware of this. The Mediterranean is not only a geographical separation between 2 regions that are very different in terms of GDP, but also we have a very different demographical situation when you combine demography, declining demography on one side and increasing demography on the other side, and GDP per capita that are very difficult. So basically we have a gradient that pushes towards human mobility, and this is something that has to do with physics. It's the physics of movement, and this is the case, and it's going to be the same in the future. And the solution goes through 2 main lines of action. The first one is to help the southern countries in their development in order to close the economic gap, and after closing the economic gap, we are going to work on the demographic gap, because there is a relationship between GDP per capita and demographics. And to go back to what the Mr. Commissioner said, so we will have more financial and technological capital in order to push for the development in situ of those young people are looking for a future, and hopefully these people will find this development in their home country. So this will be the control variable that will have the best effects. Maybe the effect will not be overnight, but also we need to push for local development. And in the northern Mediterranean we have financial and technological capacities, and we have markets that can open in order to foster this development in the south. And if we don't have this, the second variable is the regulation of the flows. The bad flows, they provoke deaths and provoke worries, because the European citizens see in migration a phenomenon that worries them, because many times it is not well regulated. When the African citizens who are putting their lives in danger to cross the Mediterranean, what do you want me to talk about this? So we have to fight against irregular migration, and we need to find regular and stable ways of migration that follow the needs of the European countries. In terms of workforce, it is very clear that in many European countries in the employment markets and social systems, they need new blood from the outside. The case of Spain is a very clear case, because besides those who try to cross the Mediterranean, correct me if I'm wrong, we receive in Spain more than 400,000 migrants who come from Latin America, and they don't come in boats, they come in planes, and they're more visible. So without them, how can we make our society function? And the rest of the European countries suffer the same. So our common work goes through these two lines of action. We need to foster the local development, and on the other hand, we need to regulate the migration. I don't want to talk about illegal, I want to talk about irregular migration, because all human beings are illegal, and this creates a lot of anguish and a lot of despair in many people. So that's why we need to have real political proposals and not false ones.
Hola, ¿qué tal? Muy buenas tardes, ministro.
Good afternoon. Mr. Alvarez, I'm Albert Castilla from EFE Television. I have a questions about the Qatar World Cup, and I believe that Spain needs to talk about human rights, as Germany said. And from the government, are you going to send institutional representation if Spain reaches the final? What do you believe what happened yesterday in the Congress with the Minister Montero and these violent words against the minister? And also there will be a summit between Russia and Ukraine. Do you believe this will be possible in the next months to come? To answer the first question, I have no doubt that Spain will reach the finals in the World Cup, and of course there will be a Spanish representation to be with the Spanish team for the victory. The commitment of the government of Spain with the LGBTI rights is extremely clear, and it's present absolutely everywhere. So there is absolutely no doubt against this. And as for the words that were pronounced yesterday against the Minister Irene Montero in the Parliament, I believe that these are absolutely despicable, and above all and beyond what I believe, not as a minister of Spain but as a citizen of Spain, I believe that the temple of the world is the Congress and is the Parliament. The Congress is the place where the representatives of the sovereignty of the Spanish people are there in order to work for consensus, in order to work for unity, in order to dialogue with different political ideas. And what happened yesterday and the words that we heard yesterday are despicable and go against the objectives of our parliament. So that's why I reject them totally. As for your last question, I don't have, I cannot predict the future. I don't know what's going to happen. The desire of Spain from the beginning was to have diplomacy and dialogue, the main channel to resolve any conflict, any doubt, any problem that any country in the international community might have. And believe me, and I'm saying this in front of the High Representative of the European Union, everything that the government of Spain and all the European partners are doing has one objective. Everything that we do has one goal: to bring back peace as soon as possible to Ukraine. And for this, the Russian soldiers have to go back within the borders of the Russian Federation that never they should have left.
Buenos días.
Good morning.
If I may, just to come in on a couple of issues that were raised. First of all, best of luck to Spain in the World Cup. But I have to say, Qatar did a tremendous job organizing a wonderful World Cup that brought joy to millions of people all over the world. Qatar never claimed to be perfect, but it certainly is doing everything it can to develop its country and to modernize. And I think we've got to remember, this is the first country in the Arab world to host World Cup. That's something of which we're all proud. Nobody's perfect, but just continue to picking on that which is negative and ignoring that which is extremely positive and extremely wonderful does not send the right message in that regard. So we have differences in opinion, we have differences in views, but that should not take away from the fact that Qatar has really put together a World Cup that is unique in every sense of the word. If I may also come on the issue of migration, you do not solve the issue of migration by closing borders. We in Jordan are the largest per capita host of refugees anywhere in the world. We know that to deal with this issue, first of all, as I said earlier, you've got to solve crises that are pushing people out of their countries. We cannot look at Syria and do nothing to solve the crisis and then not expect people to seek better lives for their kids. People are going to do what people do anywhere in the world. They're going to look for a better life. They're going to seek to provide food for their children, schools for their children, opportunities for their young people. So I think in order to deal with the issue of migration, we cannot just look at it in terms of who's coming from where to where. We've got to look at why people are leaving. What is it that we can do collectively to improve living conditions for people? And that starts by really working harder to solve crises that push people away, by ensuring economic activity and economic prosperity in the countries from which refugees immigrate, and by not abandoning refugees. And again, as a country that has 1.3 million Syrians refugees in Jordan, that has 2.4 million Palestinians refugees registered with UNRWA, I can tell you this is a tremendous responsibility. We are doing everything we possibly can to provide those people with a dignified lives, because we know that if we abandon them to need, to ignorance, to bitterness, then everybody's going to suffer. But it is our collective duty to provide them with a shot at a decent life. Again, Europe is doing a lot, and that's something we appreciate. Other partners are doing a lot, and that's something we appreciate. But if we look at the issue of refugees and migration, we've got to look at the whole ecosystem and start addressing the root causes of this issue, and not just focus on the consequence of it, but really say, how can we solve the root issues? How can we solve the crises? How we can create economic opportunity? How we can increase achievement? How we can provide opportunities? My dear friend Joseph spoke of the gap in GDP on both shores of the Mediterranean. That's a tremendous gap. And again, people, wherever they are, no matter where they come from, they want to live in peace, they want to live in dignity, they want to live with opportunity. If they cannot find it in their region, they're going to look for it elsewhere. So let's not look at this as one threat from one region to the other. This is a problem for which we're all responsible to start with, if we're going to go back historically, and the solution of which can only be attained if we work together and try to create conditions conducive to having people stay in their countries and prosper and achieve in their countries. Thank you.
Thank you. Last, take one question, and then after this question, I will finish the press conference, but I will ask the press corps to stay for the announcement of this very important project, Medusa. But last question, please.
Sí, buenos días. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Francisco Tapias from La Sexta, and I have a question from the High Representative, Mr. Bborrell. First and foremost, how did you reach the agreement with Kosovo about the immatriculation of the cars? And also, the second question is, can you talk about the migration plan that will be presented tomorrow? And finally, what is the situation of the European airspace and its defense after the fall of the missile in Poland? Thank you.
The This is not a question, really, is it? There are many questions, and furthermore, the spectrum is huge, and none have to do with today's meeting. I don't know whether my colleagues, would they allow me to attempt to answer at least the one that is more current of the questions, the one in which the European Union has been more involved, the one that has to do with this agreement that has been reached in recent hours between Kosovo and Serbia. Well, I'm very happy about the agreement because we really struggled. We've been struggling since last August to achieve the agreement. We really were on the brink of getting to it on Monday. That was not possible, but 48 hours later, I am happy to say and confirm that yes, well, there was some rethinking done, and the representatives of Kosovo and Serbia went to Brussels. And yesterday evening, when I was landing here in Barcelona, I was able to share with the Spanish minister that yes, there was an agreement, thanks to the, mediation of the European Union and my special representative directly in charge of this. The two parties have managed to reach an agreement, and they have accepted a proposal that is based on the de-escalation of the crises in order to be able to focus on what is really and truly important, which is to have normal relations between Belgrade and Pristina. And what's the agreement? Well, basically, it's very simple. Serbia commits to stop emitting registration plaques with the names of Kosovo cities. It will not be manufacturing any more registration plates. That was a problem. And Kosovo commits to prevent practicing or deploying any actions that mean a registration of those vehicles that already are driving with those registration plates. I think it's a common sense proposal. So it's kind of saying, okay, you stop making more registration plates that are the cause of the problem, and the other party will abstain from trying to re-register those vehicles. Both parties have accepted and committed to the fact that what was decided years ago has to be put into practice. So past agreements have to indeed be implemented. And in future days, I will be contacting Brussels again. I will be getting in touch with both parts, Serbia and Kosovo, to relaunch the discussion about the normalization process. I think it's an agreement that is very, very important, and it avoids or prevents yet another crisis that could have generated a lot of violence in the north of Kosovo. So it prevents a crisis. And with the support of the international community, it is possible for us now to make headway towards talking about a proposal that was put on the table after the emergency meeting of August that has the full support of France and Germany, and indeed it should make us not go from crisis to crisis and solving fires where they happen, but rather have a permanent solution to a problem that there is between Kosovo and Serbia. Everybody knows about it, and it has to mean the normalization of relationships in the terms that the two parties agree upon. You were asking about the Ukraine anti-air defense. It's very far from what we're talking about today, but in any case, I think that it is very, very clear. Ukraine needs more defense, air defense, and the members of the EU are going to do what is possible. I mean, when there are attacks with more than 100 missiles simultaneously, it is very difficult to get them all down. It's as clear as that. I mean, efficacy right now is very high. 70% of the missiles launched are destroyed. But of course, there is a 30% left that is actually being lethal from the standpoint of destruction of electric systems. We have to help Ukraine much more to reinforce its anti-air defense system. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vice President, and thank you, Co-President and Minister Albaris, for this press conference. I will ask you to stay because we're going to announce an extremely important project. But first of all, I will ask Minister Ayman al-Safadi, of course, to thank him very much so he can join his other colleague.